Good afternoon or good evening. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. My name is Jeff Bars. I'm one of the board members of the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce in Australia, or in short, the NCCA. Speaking on behalf of the NCCA, it's fantastic to be able to welcome you here all tonight in these stunning offices of KPMG to the launch of our digital guide for Victorian companies doing business in the Netherlands. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I pay my respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Before we start, a number of housekeeping items. If there is a fire alarm, we should probably evacuate, so please follow the directions by the fire wardens that will be coming to rescue us at that point. If you need the bathroom, bathrooms are right behind me, just out of the room to your right. And as you've probably noticed with the number of cameras around you, we do have some photography and videography being taken today. If you would like to be included in that, please let one of our team members know at the back of the room. Last but not least, we do have our social channels here up on the screen. We'd love for you to share your presence here today on your social channels, so please tag us as much as possible. That will help to spread the word for the NCCA. All right, for those of you who may be new to the NCCA, we aim to be the go-to organization that connects the Victorian and Dutch business communities. And we're doing that by a range of events and activities that not only provide value to our individual members or corporate members here in Australia, but we also aim to play our part in growing the many strong ties that Victoria already has with the Netherlands. And we certainly hope that our event today and the launch of the digital guide for Victorian businesses to export to and do business in the Netherlands will help with just that. As Australia, the Netherlands, and wider the European Union, looking to deepen the economic ties, we are very proud to play our little part in informing Victorian companies of the many exciting opportunities that the Netherlands offers for Victorian companies. And none of that would be possible without the support of Global Victoria and our fantastic partnership with the Global Victorian Trade Alliance. As many of you would know, over the past months, nearly a year actually, we've worked very closely with Global Victoria on organizing a range of events focusing on the Dutch strengths in agri-tech, in fintech, and in circular economy. And we brought together experts from both Victoria and from the Netherlands on sharing insights and creating meaningful connections to help them set up overseas. That's all coming together tonight in this event while we bring in those insights and publish those alongside other insights in our very first Victorian guide for exporting to and doing business with the Netherlands. We've developed that in partnership with Global Victoria, with the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, and with KPMG. And we are very proud to launch that here today, hosted on our website, visible for everyone to see, to download, and even to print. As we will discuss shortly, the Netherlands, with its innovative and entrepreneurial mindset, offers Victorian companies a lot of opportunities to grow their business internationally. And as a proud Dutch Victorian, it is great to see how our two economies are so complementary, and we share a lot of sectoral strength in quite a few areas. Now, before we discuss all of that in a panel discussion later on, I would like to welcome to the stage Danny Jarrett, CEO of Global Victoria and Invest Victoria, to make some remarks. Danny, we're delighted to welcome you here today, not only to celebrate the launch of the guide with us, but also to celebrate the wider partnership with Global Victoria.
Thanks so much for that very kind comment and opening, Jeff. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. As Jeff said, my name is Danny Jarrett. I am the CEO for Global Victoria and Invest Victoria. I like to say it's the best job in the Victorian government, where I get to lead the state's trade, facilitation and investment attraction agencies. I too would like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners on the lands on which we're joining this meeting here in Melbourne, on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge their unbroken connection to land and community, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge and welcome back to Melbourne Hugo Klein, the Head of Economic Affairs, Trade and Investment for the Kingdom of the Netherlands in Australia. As the home of the largest population of Dutch-born residents in Australia, Victoria shares a long-standing and vibrant relationship with the Netherlands. Today, I would like to touch on Victoria's modern and dynamic economic relationship with the Netherlands, which is a leading investor in Victoria and as the 12th largest foreign investor in the state over the last 5 years. With a steady flow of Dutch investment into the state, we see interest and potential for more investment in the fields of circular economy, offshore wind and batteries, agtech, as well as in the more traditional fields of IT and business services. In all of these sectors, both the Netherlands and Victoria are leaders. Similarly, as our 18th largest merchandise trading partner and two-way trade, valued at $1.3 billion annually, the Netherlands is an important destination for Victorian products. The Netherlands is also Victoria's second largest export market in the European Union after Germany. So why the Netherlands? Victorian companies have historically relied on the UK as a springboard into the European market. Post-Brexit, the Netherlands is now an ideal location for Victorian companies to expand internationally, not only in its own right, but also as a gateway to expand for businesses into the European Union. Similarly, we see Victoria as an ideal location for Dutch companies to invest as they grow their presence in our region. It is a particularly exciting time for Victoria's relationship with the Netherlands and Europe, and we look forward to the successful conclusion of negotiations for Australia-Europe Union Free Trade Agreement, a critical step to deepen already important trade and investment relationships. The Victorian Government has prioritised its relationship with Europe, including the Netherlands. Earlier this year, Victoria opened a new trade and investment office for Europe in Paris. Under the leadership of Victoria's Commissioner for Europe, Gnu Sebest, the responsibility of this office is to strengthen the state's presence, profile, reach and trade and investment connections across the region, including the Netherlands. Along with Global Victoria's team in Melbourne and our offices in Europe, stand ready to support Victorian companies to successfully expand into the region. So with all that said, just as we work in partnership with other governments, including Hugo and his team here in Australia, we are proud to work in partnership with the bilateral chambers of commerce here in Melbourne. And this evening's event and the digital guide, which will shortly be launched, is supported by Global Victoria under the Global Victoria Trade Alliance, a unique partnership between the Victorian Government and business organisations, including the Netherlands Chamber. Over the past 18 months or so, our relationship with the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce Australia has been a huge success, providing essential information and connections to Victorian companies on the export opportunities into the Netherlands. We very much value our relationship with the Netherlands Chamber of Commerce Australia, and I'd like to thank Helene Hagemans, President of the Chamber, and the Board for all their hard work. It is a real delight to be here this evening to launch this exciting and, importantly, very useful and practical tool for Victorian companies. Thanks again to the Chamber and to the Dutch Government and to KPMG for hosting us this evening and bringing this event together. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Danny. At the NCCA, we believe that partnership is key to our success. So I'm delighted to also invite one of our closest partners for remarks, Mr. Hugo Klein, Head of Economic Affairs, Trade and Investment in Australia for the Dutch government and Consul General to Sydney. We won't hold that against you. It's a privilege to welcome you back to Melbourne. Please do come up to the stage.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Danny, for your kind words. Thanks to the Chamber, and congratulations on the launch of the guide in cooperation with Global Invest Victoria, and thank you, KPMG, for hosting us. Indeed, I am the Dutch Consul General in this other very prominent Australian city on the eastern seaboard. But I should tell you that we work in terms of trade and investment across Australia, so throughout the entire Commonwealth, which is a quite big space for us to cover, as well as providing consular services throughout Australia. And then we have an embassy in Canberra, but they do deal with different things. Today we launched this guide, which is a good thing, because in terms of trade, world trade, free trade, stuff is happening like always. I guess to a certain extent there was some bad news in terms of geo-economic fragmentation. That's what you see all around. I think that the times of hyper-globalization and free trade for all is coming to an end because of all kinds of geopolitical circumstances. Like-mindedness and geopolitical proximity counts more than it used to. Now, in terms of overall free trade, that usually is bad, because free trade is good because, comparative advantages and free flows of goods and services across the globe. But given the circumstances, I think we're keener, we as the Netherlands, but also we as in the European Union, to seek friends, even if they are located far away. And if you, for instance, look at the statistics of foreign direct investment, and indeed the Netherlands is still number 5, the 5th source of FDI in Australia, and number 12 in Victoria, so there's room for improvement in Victoria. And if you look at the patterns over the last decades, you see that foreign direct investment was largely dominated by geographic proximity, and there's a change because it's more geopolitical proximity, which determines your destinations of foreign direct investment. Well, we're not going to solve all geopolitical issues tonight here as we speak, but seeking each other, seeking friends, even if far away, like-minded, politically stable partners in terms of securing your supply chain, is important. And Australia obviously is well placed to become an important partner for the EU and the Netherlands in terms of renewable energy, critical and raw materials, the rare earth metals that you read about a lot, because we are sort of diversifying our strategic dependencies, as I think are many other partners and players. So in that sense, the good news is that these like-minded partners are sounding each other out and finding each other. Then you refer to the ongoing FTA talks between Australia and the EU. That's been a long process, I think 5 years now, so that may sound depressing, but recently some of the negotiators said actually it was to a certain extent beneficial. There was the COVID pause, then there was the submarine pause and what have you. But the length of that process also was beneficial to the extent that the Australians and the European negotiators could get accustomed to each other, because let's face it, the EU is a very difficult animal. Very often we ourselves, even as a founding father of the EU, are slightly perplexed about the complicity that the EU brings along. But Australia is also a difficult animal with its layered governance structures and what have you. So the negotiator said that actually the length of that process was also beneficial because they understand each other better. And since the B word Brexit has been mentioned, indeed, the UK, London can not necessarily be longer the prism through which Australia looks at the internal market. And we like to believe that indeed the Netherlands is a good entry into this single market. So in that sense, I think the panel will also talk about the FTA more in depth, but maybe a plea, if you will, to really get down to the EU and try to understand this creature. It's difficult, but not only from a geopolitical perspective, it matters that we come to know each other better and learn to work together. I think the Netherlands and Victoria, to a certain extent, are similar economies. Agriculture is important, service-based economies, so there's a lot of like-mindedness on that level as well. We, as a trade and investment department, are working primarily on themes like renewable energy, obviously. Paul, you've been in Rotterdam, which was a pretty massive event with a serious Australian delegation. You talk about green hydrogen and imports coming from Australia to the EU, into the Netherlands, through to Germany, what have you. Another big theme is circularity, or the circular economy. That is something where we like to believe that we may be a little bit ahead of Australia, because we've been dealing with these issues for a longer time than Australia, with all that space and abundance. But those times seem to be waning, so there's a very good development in terms of talking to each other. Australia sees the Netherlands as a country with best practices. It's a circular economy is many things at the same time. It's about what do you put into the built environment from the design phase. Think about the afterlife of products, the product steward systems that you will have in Australia as well. At someday maybe we'll bring all products back to the producer in order to turn waste into resources. And it's a massive undertaking, but a very compelling one, given climate change and especially in a country as Australia, where the effects of climate change kick in harder than in many other parts of the world, including Europe. So in that sense, there's a whole menu of common interest issues emerging, and we should tap into that. You've mentioned some statistics, so we're doing fairly well, but there's always room for improvement. We hope that the FTA, whenever it's clinched, that's usually what you see after FTAs, the overall trade volume just increases. I think we'll need to do a lot of explaining. It's not just about Prosecco. It's important, Prosecco and Feta, but there's many more things to it than just that. There's always a tendency of people to focus on a few of these sticking points. I heard Don Farrell saying that he hit a big wall during his last talks with Brussels. But you may say that's bad news, but I think it's good news, because now it's the political level. So I think the negotiations have yielded a lot, and once you get into the political level, you know that we're somewhere near. So let's keep our fingers crossed. Thank you. I hope this guide and the publication will stimulate the interaction that we've been talking about, and we will talk about also in the panel. Thank you for having me. Thank you again for the Chamber. We are not represented in Victoria. We used to have a presence here in Melbourne. I think at some point we should reconsider, now that Melbourne is so much bigger than Sydney. We may have to recalculate, but obviously Victoria is of primary interest to us. And maybe one day you will see some Dutch flaggies popping up here in the city as well, next to the endeavours of the Chamber, for which we are very grateful. So thank you for your attention, and I hope that we'll have a fruitful panel discussion. And see each other during drinks afterwards as well, to chat a little on. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Consul General. I'd now like to turn to our host for today and the moderator of our panel discussion, Ursula Leparoli. I've been pronouncing this with the most Italian accent ever all day. I hope I did it justice. Ursula is partner and global mobility service tax lead here in Victoria for KPMG. Ursula, thank you very much for hosting the panel, which I'm sure will be very insightful for everyone in the room.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, so lots of information to share tonight. I might invite Rena and Louise to the stage as well. So this will be a challenging feat. We've got two ladies in the room with us here, and then we've also got some individuals online. So as Jeff said, my name is Ursula Leparoli. I lead one of our practices here. Why it's relevant? We help companies with their talent as they move around the world, because there's tax implications and other things that we can talk about. But tonight's really about the Netherlands. So what I thought I might do is start off our panel with Ashley. So Ashley is joining us not from the room. She'll be on the screen so that you can see her. Now, Ashley represents the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency, or NFIA. Now, Ashley, I thought I might ask you, let's start with the cash first, with the money. So how you spend your money is one of the most important business decisions that you can make. And so I wanted to ask, how can NFIA help with this process as companies decide to export to the Netherlands? And while you're also answering, perhaps tell us a little bit more about NFIA.
Yeah, absolutely, Ursula. I just want to double check that you can hear me and everything's working.
Yes, you sound lovely. You look lovely. Please tell us.
Thank you. Thanks, Ursula. Look, that's a great question. And it's an important one too, because how companies spend their time, money, and resources is important at all stages of the business. But it's easy for these things to be used up, especially when considering expanding your business to a new location and certainly to another country. You've got to undertake the research. You've got to consider and make your network. You've got to think about logistics and locations. And that's really where the NFIA can help. And so just by way of background, the Netherlands Foreign Investment Agency is an operational arm of the Netherlands Department of Economic Affairs and Climate Policy. And we work together nationwide in the Netherlands with the Invest in Holland network. And this includes regional economic development agencies, the Holland International Distribution Council, and also several cities. And the purpose of this network is, and the services that we provide, is there to support and provide assistance to companies, and in my case, that's Victorian companies, that are wanting to expand successfully into the Netherlands. So the services that we and our whole network provide are free, confidential, and on a no obligation basis, which is why we can be of great assistance, especially in these early days of considering if, where, and when you want to expand your business into the Netherlands. Together with our network, we can provide you with information, support, and connections to help you achieve a soft landing in the Netherlands. And we at the NFIA also continue to check in with our clients, with the companies that have expanded on a fairly regular basis to see how we can continue to support them and also help them perhaps with future projects such as an additional location or additional expansion within the Netherlands. So in terms of information, we can provide insight into the basics of setting up a business, and that's from incorporation to setting up a bank account. We can also help with selecting regions and a location that is most suitable for your business and for the entity that you want to establish. And that's going to depend on also what kind of activities you want to undertake in the Netherlands, whether that's research and development, marketing and sales, a distribution centre, logistics, or European headquarters. We can also provide initial insight into tax and incentives, but I'm going to leave the specifics of tax to the people that know it best at KPMG. And we also provide initial guidance on immigration and labour law matters, and importantly, work residence permits, which is really important because many companies, when they are expanding, want to take over their employees from the home country into the Netherlands to help get the business up and running there. So Australian employees that then need to move across to work for the Dutch entity can also face a number of immigration questions, and we are also there to help the business and those employees with that. So we have teams of specialists of the focus sectors that work from our headquarters in The Hague, and they cover the life sciences and health, agri-food, high-tech systems and materials, IT, energy, chemicals, fintech, and creative sectors. But don't worry, if we haven't mentioned an industry that perhaps you're working in, you can still get in contact with us and we can definitely point you in the right direction. And we can connect you with specialists from these sector teams for more complex industry-specific discussions that you might have in mind or that you might face along your expansion journey. And that can be either at the initial stages or once you've already incorporated and the business is up and running. As you face certain questions or queries, you can also reach out to us. For specific services, and we can also direct you to service providers that can take care of the administration of your company on a short or long-term basis. This is often really important for companies because it can be overwhelming when you're entering a brand new market, taking everything into consideration at the one time, because there can be differences and significant differences between the way that you run your business in Victoria and in the Netherlands. So working together with the service provider of your choice, we can provide a whole list, can be really helpful in helping you achieve that soft landing. So as you can see, the service that we provide at the NFIA, but also as the Invest in Holland network, is very broad. And I think it's most important to know that as a company, as a business, a Victorian business that is considering or maybe considering expanding into the Netherlands or sees the Netherlands as the gateway to Europe for even greater expansion, then you can definitely reach out to us, and preferably me as the first point of contact, as I'm the Assistant Director Oceania. I am based in Sydney. I'm at the same building as Hugo, so don't hold it against me. I love coming down to Melbourne when I can. So please do feel free to get in touch with me, to send me an email. I am the only one based in Australia, but I'm be more than happy to help you, point you in the right direction and make the connections that you need. And of course, there's always extra information on our website. So for essentially free, confidential, no obligation advice, you can reach out to us.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm glad we started with you. Good to start with the free stuff first. And it sounds like you guys have lots of useful information. And as Ashley mentioned, inside of the guide, a lot of these kind of references are in there so that you can go and refer how to reach Ashley. It's great to have someone in our time zone to be able to speak to. Now, I might move us along to Jason Collins, who's the CEO at European Australian Business Council. Now, he's also going to be joining us from overseas. I think he's in Belgium this morning. So, Jason, Australia and the European Union are negotiating this free trade agreement that Hugo mentioned. I didn't realize it was 5 years that it had been going on, but I understand from reading that it's been strongly committed to that it will be reaching a deal by July of, oh, big breath in. So Jason, how do we expect this FTA will enhance trade, and what can it mean for Victorian businesses considering exporting to the Netherlands?
Fantastic. Well, look, great to be joining you from Brussels. I know it's not the Netherlands, but there are lots of Dutch speakers around me, so almost there. But great to be with you, and congratulations once again to the Chamber, to KPMG and Global Victoria for this excellent guide, and I think a great platform as how we can build the relationship. Yes, the free trade agreement has come into focus, particularly over the last week, as there's been negotiations here in Brussels. And as Hugo has mentioned, we're in the political phase, which normally signals either it's going to be a great success after a lot of torture of hand-wringing or wrestling to get the final details across the line. So we certainly hope that's the trajectory that we're on. It has been a 5-year negotiation, which sounds a long time, but in fact, if you look at other comparable negotiations, Canada, EU took 10 years. EU Mercosur is coming up to its 20th year of negotiations. So these are not easy won agreements, but when they come, they are quite transformative. And that's really what the relationship will be like. It will be transformed by this, this free trade agreement. Why? Well, for Australia, the European Union is 450 plus million people. It's an economy of 24 to 25 trillion GDP in Australian dollar terms per year, which is simply massive. What we'll see are three key things. There are three key objectives of this free trade agreement. First is how do we kind of streamline a lot of the old-fashioned trade barriers which have existed for a long time. Tariffs and various other sort of border controls, to put it that way, which have existed. Now, Australia's been very good in reducing most of its tariffs to 4 to 5% on average, but there are ones that still exist. And when Australia has done very well in terms of trade agreements with most of its other major partners, that puts European firms at a comparative disadvantage. Even if the numbers in terms of the percentage may not be hugely high, it still is a barrier. The second area where there's huge scope for opportunity is on getting greater regulatory coherence and recognition, so that we know that Australia and Europe are both high quality in terms of regulation, commitments to products, consumer health, labour standards, environmental standards, and others. But there are many instances where the two regulatory systems aren't particularly compatible, and it makes it very difficult for companies to operate across borders. So we see great scope for improving the overall environment that would make it easier for companies to navigate the two respective regulatory systems. Thirdly, it's, well, how do we shine a greater spotlight on the opportunities? And this is the one that's difficult to measure, but both sides have predicted there would be a huge uptick in terms of both trade and investment. But there have been some spectacular examples when the EU has done, for example, its trade agreements with Japan and Korea. They've seen an astronomical increase in the flows simply because companies have seen the FTA as a vehicle for exploring new opportunities that they haven't before. Now, to get to the points about specifically where are some of the areas where conditions will be improved, and particularly for Victorian companies, the improved market access is the first one that I mentioned through the reduction of tariffs, quotas, and the various other non-tariff barriers on many products, including some where Victoria excels in terms of agricultural products. And that's the most sensitive, but also one of the areas where there's particularly good prospects that if the deal has been done, of further exports from Victoria to the European Union. Increased services and investment opportunities. So a framework, for example, for the mutual recognition of professional qualifications and provisions on temporary movement of people. Not every issue will be solved by this, but it certainly will be a strong step in the right direction. We've all heard of the sort of what sounds quite ludicrous examples of people who are highly technically qualified coming to Australia and basically having none of their qualifications recognised in the Australian context. That would be a huge step in the right direction if we can improve those conditions. Reduction in costly regulatory barriers. That gets back to the comment earlier about trying to harmonise standards and certifications, all of those costs that are built into doing business, which act as a disadvantage, particularly for small and medium enterprises. And that's again where there's a great opportunity for Victorian firms to be accessing this huge European market. A better business environment in terms of public procurement, of transparency, competition, non-discriminatory treatment for Australian firms in the European market, where under certain conditions, Australian firms will be treated as if they were European firms operating within the European market. So no differentiation there. There'll be strengthening of intellectual property rights so safeguards for patents, for various other things, copyrights that can be built in through the FTA. Finally, digital trade opportunities. Digital trade is one of those, fast growing, as we all know, but the rules of digital trade are ones that we need to get right. There's a significant difference between Australia and the European Union. Most colleagues would have heard about GDPR as the sort of public or the privacy regulation. Australian government has announced some reforms which move it more in the direction towards a GDPR-based system. These are all steps in the right direction. Finally, I'll just mention that this FTA will be groundbreaking, but it won't solve every problem. There will be still many things which are not part of EU competence, meaning that it can't be decided on overall by the European Union. Some of these things are still the competence of individual member states. But what it does do is it will give us a new framework for the economic relationship, a much, much needed new framework for the economic relationship. And from there, we can actually go further. We can look at where those areas are. For example, qualifications I referred to before, or how do we tackle some of these issues? Easier to do that under a framework agreement, which is what the FTA will represent. So we're anxiously awaiting the final deliberations of the two governments. We're very confident that whilst there's always crisis moments leading up to the final deal being done as both sides, try to tackle the most difficult and sensitive issues. So watch this space. We hope we'll come through with a great deal at the end. So thanks again for me being able to join you.
Thanks, Jason. That's really informative. I'm sure we'll have some questions from the crowd. You all will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end. But that's kind of looking ahead at what the future looks like. But I'm really excited to be sitting next to Louise here from Genie Grips, who's actually done it. And so kind of looking at the past and what it could look like and what you've achieved. So Louise, I'm also a fan of no regrets, but I think you also have to reflect back on the journey sometimes. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about Genie Grips, and if there was anything that you could do different in your export journey, what advice would you give the crowd?
Okay, so Genie Grips, we classified as an SME. We're very much an S in the SME. So we're a small family business that manufacture rubber molded products in Dandenong. So we developed rubber molded safety products for forklifts, and we developed them here in Australia, and we did all our research and thought, well, it'll be a great product in Australia. And then before we knew it, we were getting inquiries from overseas. So I kind of fell into exporting by getting inquiries from customers, and I thought, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can ship things overseas. Yep, let's go for it. So that's how I started my export journey. So it was very much a fluke, really.
That's but
yes,
it's meant to be.
Yes. Now it's the best thing about it. So I have written a couple of little notes because this is my baby. I could probably talk for way longer than the time that you told me I was limited to. So, probably looking back, when we first sent stock over to the Netherlands, we'd already set up a 3PL in the US, and not all 3PLs are the same. So the 3PL in the US was smooth sailing, products arrived, they could pick and pack. We sent all our products to the Netherlands, but unbeknownst to me, they assumed that I was going to be selling pallet loads, not single unit loads, and they couldn't unpack or do anything with it. So it was like, right, okay, panic, let's see how we can find another 3PL, get more stock there and get product out to people. In the meantime, I'm air shipping everything from Australia. So it was a very expensive mistake. Yes. But so we eventually, because we'd won a grant with DHL a few years before, I used all my contacts I had in DHL. So we've ended up setting up a 3PL in Rosenberg to supply all our European customers from there. Another pointer I would say is really do your research on compliance in the EU. So just before we were launching in Germany, we were doing the Logimat Expo, which is the biggest logistics expo in Europe. We wanted our stock there to be, because we were going to sell thousands of units, obviously, from the 62,000 people that come through this expo. So we get the stock there. then realised that the steel components in our products are not compliant. So that the chromium that we use, we can use here in Australia and we can use it in the US, but it's not allowed in the EU. So, right, we need to get it all remade, get it there, ship it. So yeah, so that was a little bit of a crisis, and obviously my hair colour is like this probably from a few of these events. But so you're just keeping your eye on the compliance. EU are very strict on complying and selling there, so just make sure you've ticked lots of boxes there. And probably our other biggest hurdle we had was we set up our financial system here in Australia through one of the big banks, and that gave us bank accounts in multi-currency. We thought we were all sorted, but in the EU they work with IBAN numbers, and my Australian little account number, they went, well, that's not an account number, we can't function with that. So finding a company that would work with us, being small, you know, we weren't going to be turning over $1 million a month, and that was a really big issue. And I know it took a while for us to get there, and we did get one company. It didn't end up working, and it took us about 6 months to work it out with a second company to work out our finances. So finding someone that can work with you as a small business is really unique. But
did you say you had Ashley's help? Is that
Ashley helped us set up with the support from them, setting up on the ground with all our tax and all of that, yeah, setting us up. So it was great to be able to tap into that free service that they provide, yes.
So I wanted to ask you one follow-up question that's near and dear to my heart now. You obviously, it's kind of hard to sell things in the Netherlands without ever going there. So you've obviously been there.
Yes.
And can you tell us what it's like doing business there as an individual, an Australian going over there?
Well, firstly, I think the Dutch are great because they're so forthright and straightforward, so there's no fluff. So, which we love, you know, especially when you're dealing with someone overseas. It's great to be able to know what is said is going to get done. And the team that we work with, we have a part-time sales and marketing team in the Netherlands, so what they say they do. So it's brilliant. And the first time I went there, being a small business, we thought we only had funds to send me there, right? So I've organised all these meetings and appointments and all of that. And last minute, my business partners are like, we're a bit scared sending you by yourself. We're just going to sod the money. We're going to send you as well. So I got very worried because working in a very male-dominated industry in Australia, so in manufacturing, warehousing and forklifts, I'm usually the only female in the room. So I know there's a few females in the room today, and I know that whenever I go to appointments in Australia, even though I've organised them and I'm the CEO, if I happen to have one of my male business counterparts with me, they always talk to them. Whereas that was what I was really worried about when we got to the Netherlands. Wasn't a bother, because I'd set all the meetings, done it all. It was all Louise focused. So I love the fact that it was very much equal opportunities there. Yes. And yeah, but love going there, and I'm very happy that we've got a warehouse there and I've got an excuse to go and spend time there because it's a beautiful country.
Excellent. Now I'm sure we'll have some questions for the crowd for you later, but I might just keep us moving along and perhaps to another topic that might not be as exciting as yours, but tax is close to my heart. So I'm going to go to Jeroen now, my colleague who's in the Netherlands. So Jeroen, you've helped, he works in tax, but in corporate tax. So I work in individuals, he works with the companies. You've helped foreigners expand into the Netherlands. What do you find is the element of tax that trips companies up, and how can this be avoided?
Yes. Hi, Ursula, and thank you for having me. And I think there are three areas where, from my experience, where businesses exporting out of Australia should pay attention to when they come to Europe. The first one is the VAT, the VAT, GST, customs area. So when you sell products into Europe directly out of Australia, try to avoid that you have to register for VAT and customs purposes in each of the European countries. Administratively, this is extremely cumbersome. Even though the VAT and customs rules in Europe are very much aligned. The administrative requirements in the various countries is still very different. So my recommendation for businesses selling into Europe is to pick a country, the Netherlands, as a single point of entry into Europe. So, for instance, if you sell B2B, business to business, if possible, bring your products first into the Netherlands, to a hub, to a warehouse somewhere, and then use the Netherlands to further send these products to your customers in Europe. The Netherlands is well placed for that, from a logistical perspective, but also from an administrative tax administration perspective. There's a special VAT, GST facility in the Netherlands based on which you do not have to fund your import VAT. And once the products are in the Netherlands, you can sell it within Europe to your customers without any further VAT to be incurred. If you are a B2C, selling to customers, to consumers, then you should really try to use what we call in Europe the one-stop shop VAT facility. You still pay your VAT in the various countries where your customers are located, but you pay it only to one tax office. You can pay it to the Dutch tax office, and they will make sure that the country tax offices will get their money, and you do not need to register in each of these countries. So that's a really attractive facility for companies, B2C companies out of Australia into Europe. So that's the VAT. And the second and my third one were already mentioned previously. One is that really important is visa and work permit area. So when you're sending people over to the Netherlands from Australia, getting a visa, getting a work permit takes time, particularly if you're not set up your business in the Netherlands yet, so you do not have a sponsor. The NFVA can help you with that, which is good. There are other workarounds as well, like a payroll company or something like that for the time being, whilst you're working on your visa and work permit. But that's a point of attention I'd like to raise. People from Australia, they go to Europe, what I would call stick their neck out. You need to take care of them. And so visa and working permits, you need to deal with that on time. Second point is that. The third area is not so much tax, and I think Ashley mentioned it, is the banking. It's opening a bank account, just as simple as that. The rules and regulations in Europe are so strict on money laundering, on KYC rules, that it takes a long time. And there's a company, Airwallex, they can help you with this. They have found a way to facilitate multi-currency payments across. They don't have an IBAN, but I think it's still a good way to have them, to use them for payments within Europe. But again, the NFVA is also very much capable of helping you with them, making the right introductions at the banks. And
Thanks.
that's basically it.
Yeah, no, well, hold on. You can't get off that easy. Now,
Okay.
sometimes you hear about Netherlands it used to be kind of known for a place to do some good international tax planning, so maybe a spot to go. But now you're kind of maybe hearing that they're ramping up their international tax avoidance and really focused on that. So does this mean it's harder to do business in the Netherlands, or how would you address that?
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, we're very much open for business. But it's true that the Netherlands used to be the middle of a lot of international tax structures, which are now perceived to be tax avoidance structures. But these structures are no longer facilitated by the Dutch tax office for a couple of years now. And together with Australia, in fact, we are at the front of getting these, not to facilitate that type of structures for mostly the large multinational companies who make use of that. But the small businesses, they're still very much welcome. And I think the Dutch tax office is sophisticated, pragmatic, business friendly, and really open for business. So that's it. Very, very, very welcome.
We'll set your own center. Now, last but not least, Reina, he's just said it's open for business. I understand your lot can help make that happen. So you're here representing international expansion made easy. So I guess it's all in the title, isn't it? Now, my question for you is, what's the biggest mistake you see businesses making as they start to export, and how can it be easily avoided? Is there anything specific for the Netherlands that you all can help people with?
Well, I think it's very aligned with what my fellow panel members already mentioned. I think preparation is key. We have companies approach us sometimes at the stage where they've already got commercial deals going and they need an entity yesterday, or they've started trading without having the back office ready to go. My recommendation is, speak early with all the in-market advisors that you need, whether it's tax, legal, market entry experts, to prepare you for that, and think about where you're going, which EU countries are you planning to trade with, and make sure your back office is set up for that, where your employees going to be based. So the good thing, the Netherlands is very efficient in terms of setting up an entity. If you've got your documentation in order, it can be a week. You've got an entity set up. Bank account is indeed a bit more challenging, but start early and start speaking to the expert early.
Yeah, and how does your company help people then?
So we are an administrative services firm called ACE. So we help with the incorporation. We help with opening a bank account. So depending on what type of business it is, we've got contacts at various banks and can recommend where you've got the best chance of success. And then we do back office administration. So we set up your administration. We do accounting, payroll, company secretarial, compliance services. So the companies can focus on the commercial side of things.
Excellent. If I've learned nothing else from this panel tonight, it's that there's lots of people and some of the resources free to help you move into the Netherlands. Now, the only thing standing in between drinks and you all is us finishing this panel and Jeff and Helene doing some final comments. Maybe there's a question out there that someone wanted to ask? I didn't really set it up too well for questions, did I? Look, you can ask all the panel members, except for those online, questions as we have our drinks. And you've got the contact details inside of the guide for those who are online. So I might pass it back to Jeff. But thank you all for being on this panel. I really enjoyed that, and I'm sure the audience did as well.
Thanks,
Thank you, Ursula, and the panelists here and in the Netherlands and in Brussels for that great insight. So we've been talking a lot about this guide this evening, and I'm very conscious of the fact that we haven't shown you a guide just yet. There is no printed version. Further to the Consul General's comments, we have attempted to keep sustainability and circular economy at the forefront when creating this. So it is a digital guide that will be available on the NCCA website from next week. We will announce it on our social channels and via our database. But for those of you here in the room tonight, you will receive an email as soon as we start our networking drinks with a sneak preview to the guide. Have a look, have a read. There's a lot of tax information, other information in there about setting up a business and exporting to the Netherlands. You can watch it online. You can download it. Even if you need to, you could print it. We would recommend not to, but it is all there. So nearly time for some networking drinks. Just the last couple of points I would like to raise. As a membership organization, the NCCA holds a wide range of events for our members, so I just want to plug a couple if that's okay with you all. First of all, our next social drinks are in July here in Melbourne, a great opportunity for Dutch businesses and Victorian businesses to get together and network, get to know our members. It will probably be mid to end of July, but keep an eye out on our website and our social channels for the exact date and for registrations. I also want to make use of the opportunity to announce our inaugural NCCA Gala and Awards Night. So we've never done that before. This is the first for the Chamber. Will be held later this year, where we're really focusing on those ties between Victorian businesses and the Netherlands. So there will be multiple awards for trade going either way. So great opportunity for us to celebrate those economic ties and again, keep an eye out for the dates and registrations. Now, you may have seen on entry that there was a little ball for some business cards, some good old-fashioned business cards. So thanks to Creative Victoria and Global Victoria, we are able to give away tickets for the fantastic Rembrandt exhibition that is currently on at the NGV. So just checking, has everyone put their business card in there? Are there any last-minute entries before we pull a winner? No?
Second card, maybe.
Perfect. Well, Ursula, I'll let you do the honors of picking a winner if that's okay.
Here we go. Oh, Bruno Gieser? Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. Thank you. Bruno, we'll get the tickets over to you. And again, thank you to Creative Victoria and Global Victoria for providing that prize. I'm sure it's a great exhibition, and I think the Chamber will definitely have an event at the venue as well later this year. All right, last couple of things before drinks. I promise I'll be very quick. I just want to take the opportunity again to thank our partners in developing this guide, Global Victoria, the NFIA, as well as KPMG. Your partnership and support has been absolutely tremendous. And in particular, I want to thank Paul, Ursula, Jeroen, Ashley, and Carolina for many calls and many evenings putting this together. So thank you very much for that. Also, thank you to our speakers, Danny Jarrett, Consul General Hugo Klein, and all of the panelists. Great to have you all here and to celebrate here today. Last but not least, before we start those drinks, this is our last event with Global Victoria as part of the Global Victoria Trade Alliance series. And before we close that off, I just want to invite Helen Hagemans, the president of the Netherlands Chambers, to come up to say a last couple of words about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I won't keep you very long, but I thought because this is indeed the last event that we are organizing as part of the Global Victoria Trade Alliance, I'd like to say just an additional couple of thanks. And first of all, to you, Jeff, fellow board member, Jeff, thank you so much. This was, in essence, your baby. You took the lead on this event, not only organizing the event, but also the production of the guide and the content of the guide. It was your vision, so yes, thank you so much for your dedication, all the work that you put in. I know this has been a team effort, and don't get me wrong, I thank everybody involved, but I thought a very special thank you to you. And also a really big thank you to the woman and her business that has been working behind the scenes on all 6 Global Victoria events. Misha Prusa from Shout Productions. Misha, you've been extraordinary. Our events have this tremendous professional look just because of you. Shout Productions, if you need an event management company for your next event, whether it's a small event or a conference with 6,000 people, Misha is the go-to. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. You've been terrific. I also actually want to add to that when Misha organizes and produces these events, she gets the help of additional people like Simon, Carl, over there, and Francesco over there, the photographer. Simon is from The Final Cut, who's been responsible for all the photography, film, video production. It's been really top notch. This will be on our YouTube channel soon, this event, so thank you. Thank you, Misha. And then, of course, last but absolutely not least, a huge thank you to Global Victoria. It's been almost 2 years ago that the NCCA was chosen to be part of the Global Victoria Trade Alliance. Of only we're only one of 4 European chambers, and definitely the smallest of that, to be part of this amazing alliance and to be recognized as an important player in helping to
connect Victorian businesses to the Netherlands. And yeah, we are humbled and proud that you've given that trust in us. And we've really valued our partnership. And I want to personally thank Danny, but also Gnu before you, who we've worked with fantastically, and of course Emma Lawrence, Pamela Weavering, and Paul O'Hagan, who's here also in the room, probably our most direct contact. You've all been terrific. And I really hope that, I know that the event series has come to an end, but our partnership has definitely not finished here. I look forward to an ongoing relationship and build upon it. And as Hugo mentioned, there is no consulate here in Victoria, and we're very happy to step in those shoes and continue to be that link between Victoria and the Netherlands. So thank you, and now I think we should all have a drink. Thank you all, and enjoy the networking component.